So I want to talk about confidence. It's a topic that has come up in a bunch of other videos that I've done, talking about confidence and the impact it has on, thinking rationally, thinking clearly, avoiding biases, seeking objective truth, those types of things. And it's I've talked about how it's hurtful to that. So I wanted to explore that a little bit more, give a little bit more of an explanation as to the dangers I think come with confidence, and just some other aspects of it. I think the first piece that's worth noting is there's often or can be a belief that there's a strong connection between confidence and mental toughness, or even an overlap between the two things. And as I've said in other videos, mental toughness, I believe, is one of the most important traits you need to have, if not the most important, if you're going to truly become, a rational thinker. If your goal becomes seeking objective truth, mental toughness is critical to it. You need to have that mental toughness. You need to have that strength of mind and courage, frankly, to explore topics that are difficult, to explore areas that might be core to your identity. You need that mental toughness to do it. There could be a belief that confidence is right there with it. That you need to be confident. You need to be strong. Strong kind of goes with confidence. That you need to be confident in yourself to do those things as well. Or even that as you develop that mental toughness, and you start to push yourself more, you develop confidence with that because you feel like you're better now at doing this task or whatever it is you're trying to do. So there's that connection point to it. But what I want to make the case for is really that I think confidence is never a good thing when it comes to this topic, right? Rational thinking and the like. And you could start with the definition of it. If you look in Merriam-Webster, and there's a few different definitions, obviously, depending on the usage of the word, but for the purpose of the usage we're talking about today, if you look up confidence, you would see it's referred to as a quality or state of certainty. And certainty, again, is the concept that I've talked about before because it's so dangerous, frankly. Once you become certain of a belief, or you become certain on a topic, the impact it has on your thought process is significant. And typically we're not even aware of it. So that's why I think this confidence point is so important. And there's this concept of checking your instruments, trying to use some tools to ensure that you keep thinking rationally. I think a red flag around confidence is one of the key ones. I would argue that if you're exploring a topic, having a conversation, even just thinking through something that's going on, something controversial where there's a lot of complexity to it, as soon as you start to develop a form of or a sense of confidence on the topic, you should be concerned and you should really push and challenge that. Now, that's not to say you can't become an expert on something and develop confidence around your beliefs on it. I think that's natural and you will have some degree of that. But even there, I think if you start to develop a supreme sense of confidence, that becomes problematic. And there's almost a correlation there, or a causation, I guess, because as you become expert on a topic, your confidence naturally grows to such a point that you lose your ability to see that you might be developing blind spots, that your confidence might be becoming an issue because you are so confident in your abilities, you almost think it's okay. And that's obviously a concern. That's something that you want to try and avoid. But even if you're not an expert on a topic, more so, I guess, to an extent, if you're not an expert on a topic, if you start to see that confidence creeping in, again, red flag, check your instruments. That's a red flag that something might be going awry there. And, I touched on it a little bit, but let me delve into it a little bit more. The danger of confidence, as I've mentioned for the experts, is the feedback loop it creates in your thought process. When you start to develop confidence on a topic, you start to believe, naturally, if you developed a state of certainty on it, you start to believe like you've done the work that has to be done. You've gathered the information, and due to your intellect or your understanding of this topic, you've come to the right answer. You know what it is. So at that point, even from a rational perspective, if you know you have the right answer, there's not anything else to be done. There's no new information to be taken in. You are certain that you have the right answer. So naturally, your brain will start to shut down. The way that it functions, it will go onto a form of autopilot where it says, I know this topic, I know what it is. I don't need to hear any more information. I don't need to question my thinking anymore. I don't need to challenge any of that because I've got it figured out. And as I think we would all agree, on topics of any meaning and substance, the complexities, the nuances around them make it as such where you can almost never feel that way, that you've got it all figured out. So again, that's where the red flag kicks in if you start to feel that. I think another way to look at it, something that I was reading recently, was the idea of why we panic under pressure. And I thought that was interesting as a way to kind of understand confidence and how it impacts our thought process, because it's kind of the flip side of it. Same coin, but the flip side. So the idea being, from a psychological perspective, when you are feeling pressure, right? You're going to give a speech, or you're performing in front of people, or you're taking a test and you're nervous about it, whatever it is, that fear of failure, that fear of looking stupid in front of people, whatever it is, that fear, which I would say, again, is kind of the converse of confidence. Now you're not confident, you're scared, you feel insecure, you feel weak, you feel afraid of something. When that kicks in, what happens is, in the way that we think and the way that our brain is functioning, is that that autopilot turns off, right? There's certain things, it might be, a big baseball game, and you've been practicing for this and training for this your whole life, and you get up to swing and you start thinking too much because you're nervous and the fear kicks in, it reduces your confidence, the autopilot goes off, and now you are thinking about how exactly am I holding the bat? When do I swing? How should I, what pitch is he throwing? You start thinking too much. And in a situation like that, that's obviously a problem, right? You want to just perform and do the tasks as you train to do them. You want to be as efficient and clean as possible, and you want that autopilot. But it's interesting because when you bring it back to the realm that we're talking about, the idea of objective truth and rational thought, that's what you want. You want the autopilot off. You want to be thinking about every step. You want to be questioning every piece of it, and not have confidence. Think of it almost as having fear that I may not have thought through this enough. And if you use that fear, if you channel that, if you can, it can help you to do that, because you can almost imagine, being a seventh grader in history class, and a question the teacher asks, and she calls your name to answer the question. Fear kicks in. If you're nervous and, whatever it might be, a typical seventh grade kid, fear kicks in and you start thinking really quickly. You start pulling in as much information as you can, trying to analyze. You get nervous. You don't want to say something stupid. You become very aware and very concerned very quickly about how you're thinking. And I think there's something to that perhaps you can mimic, to get the reverse impact of what you would get with confidence. So it's another reason to understand and believe why confidence is not a good thing in these scenarios. But I think it may also give us a tool to help avoid that confidence and to get into the right mind frame. More to come on that. Have to think through a little bit more how that you can maybe recreate that or manufacture it to get a benefit out of it. But at this point, I think that thought around fear and certainty, and just to be on the lookout for it and to be aware of the impacts of it is important.